On today's podcast, we talk about the untapped treasure chest sitting under your booty and how to discover it, unlock it, and let all that gold into your business, because we're talking about the feedback loop, how to use customer insights to scale faster. And I break this down with a tangible actions and strategies for you to start utilizing that feedback today to make adjustments, to iterate, and use the gold mine that you have under your booty to be able to scale that business and bring your vision to life. So without further ado, let's get into the show. So are you sitting on an untapped gold mine in your business? Because here's the truth about scaling is your customers are constantly telling you exactly what you need to grow, both in what they say and also in what they do. And the most important question is, are you listening? So welcome goback to another episode of the Mind of George Show. George here, pink water, ready to go. But I'm going to be talking about the feedback loop, on how the true number one secret to really scaling and effectively is using customer insights. And feedback is so important. Like, we live in an online world. We live in a social media world, an email world. There's more competition than anything in the world environment, where there's noise and there's distractions, and it changes. It changes fast and it changes frequent. And when it comes to customer feedback, it tends to be the number one thing that most people neglect. And I did it for years. But in true transparency, it was like Solomon's paradox or the cobbler's shoes, is I would do it for all my clients. And that's where we got the most insights and made the most revenue, but I wouldn't do it to myself. And now I've kind of fallen in love with the process, because the truth is that our customers speak very, very loudly, and so do our potential customers, with how they operate, where they choose their time, their energy, their attention, and what they engage with. And those insights are so valuable to be able to make adjustments and scale our business. And so in today's show, I'm going to be sharing exactly how to do that, like why feedback is a gold mine, how to think through it, how to collect it, so that you can, most importantly, take action today and start finding the little secret ingredients that are right under our nose that lead to the key to unlock that gold mine. And so when we really, really think about it, there's an old adage where it's like, I know what's best for my customers. And Gary Vee said this years ago. He said, if you're romantic about how you do business, you'll go out of business. And I promise you, that is probably one of the most profound, powerful, and truest statements that I've heard. Because business changes, the market changes, our teams change, our offers change, our deliveries change. And there's constantly recipes going in and out of the oven. And our ability to pivot is the difference between our success and our failure. But pivoting alone, or pivoting in an echo chamber, or pivoting behind the scenes without the interactions or the feedback of the people that we're trying to help, or that are consuming our content, or are in our programs or in our courses, is where we lose the game. And so we end up making a kitchen menu of recipes that nobody wants to eat and order, because everybody was screaming for sushi and we were making Italian food. And so it's really, really important to understand. I mean, there's hundreds of business examples that you can look at with pivoting, things that were done, how they scaled because of it, the feedback that they iterated. But I would give you all those examples, except the most important example I have is yours. And that's the one I want to talk about today. And so I promise you, I'm going to give you tangible, actionable steps today that allow you to use customer feedback effectively, but also to collect it with ease. And my invitation for you is that you make this a part of your life. You make it a part of running your business. It's just as important as running sales. It's just as important as effective marketing. It's just as important as an effective customer journey, because the feedback is where the magic meets the road. We have visions, we have clarity, and we can put those out into the world. But the moment we get the feedback from the world, we can make adjustments to create a shared journey or shared insights to be able to accomplish the goals that we're going after, right? So when we think about customer feedback or customer insights, or whatever you want to label it, just people telling us how they feel, it is the fastest way to refine so many things inside of your business. It's the fastest way to refine your offers. It also has a deep, deep ability to build loyalty. And most importantly, it's the true secret to scale, because every business is co-created with their customers. We have our side. We have our responsibility as an entrepreneur, that we keep our word, that we create the offers, that we give them tangible results. But also, we have people who are coming into our house or coming to our kitchen to eat dinner with us. And they're on this journey with us, telling us what they respond to, what modality they like. Do they like to learn in videos? Do they like to learn in courses? Do they like to learn in emails? Do they want to hear it a certain way? And it's the co-creation of those two things that genuinely create the perfect recipe to scale, right? Even with physical products companies I work with, like we have supplements, and the supplement that we sell now is like version 68 of the supplement that was launched. Or even in coaching programs, like the way that the content is delivered or how the calls go comes through iterative feedback over time. Because the truth is, it's not only missed opportunity, but if you ignore the feedback, it ends up creating stagnant growth and customer dissatisfaction, right? If we don't acknowledge it, if we don't ask for it, if we don't make adjustments to it, it's basically our audience screaming like, hey, here's the way to shift. Here's what I would need. Here's what it would have to look like or feel like for me to stick around. But we ignore it. It leads to stagnant growth because we're continually to try to do the same thing and expect different results. I believe that's the definition of insanity. But then the long-term effect is it creates dissatisfaction. It leaves bad taste in people's mouths. And this is something that I had to get used to because somebody who loves events and loves running events, the most scary part for me was after the event was sending those surveys. And the first couple of times I had to have my team audit them and read them so they could deliver them to me softly because I was internalizing it so much. Like I was taking it personal, like I was a failure, I did something wrong, instead of taking it as feedback of like, no, you did great. And if you try this and you say it this way and you run it that way, not only will you be better, but they'll get better results and they'll want to come back more. And so the first step in really, really understanding how to use customer insights or customer feedback to scale is shifting our mindset. And I think it really, really boils down to two really important buckets. And bucket number one is the foundation, and it allows bucket number two to happen. And bucket number two is that we have to fall in love, or bucket number one is we have to fall in love with feedback. We have to realize that, like, if we're driving towards a wall, we would love somebody to tell us, like, hey, turn so you don't hit that wall. Or if we're trying to lose weight and we're doing these things over and over and over, but we're missing one simple thing that somebody can see, we'd want them to tell us, just like our kids. We give them feedback, our partners give us feedback, our friends give us feedback. And that feedback is the greatest gift that we could receive because we're getting a mirror of how we're showing up in the world. We're getting a mirror of how our intention and what we wanted to deliver or what we wanted to say is also being received so that we can make an adjustment. But the first step or the first bucket is actually falling in love with the feedback process and not internalizing it and shifting it from, and this is just for me, I did something wrong, I didn't meet the mark, to, wow, I did incredible, and I can do this differently. I can do this better. I can achieve this differently. And so that's bucket number one. Bucket number two in shifting that mindset is really simple. And it's getting rid of the adage of like, I know what's best for my customers, to my customers know what they want. I just need to ask. My customers know what they want. I just need to ask. And I can say this personally for me in so many different ways. Just like we used to do our events in hotel rooms, big hotel rooms, we'd have 70 to 100 people. And after a couple of iterations and feedback, we kept getting the thing of like, I want it to be more intimate. I want it to be more intimate. And I didn't adjust. And eventually what it led to was that we had an event, we had a hotel, and nobody bought tickets because they wanted more intimacy to go deeper in what we were doing. And so we made a Hail Mary call and shifted from a hotel to an Airbnb. And I remember saying, we just need 4 walls and feelings. And we reduced the amount of people so that we could protect what we care so much about, which is an individual relationship with each person, personalizing the mindset and customer journey for them, and allowing deep connection. And then that became the new standard for our events. But it was only after integrating that feedback. And I learned the lesson. I was like, no, it's my way. Like, I'm just going to give them more swag. I'm going to bring in better speakers. I'm going to do it. But the true nature of like what we do and what we love and care about at a deep level, the feedback was coming in. I've also gotten feedback in like some of our coaching programs where they've been like, George, I love it, but like you do these 1-hour training videos and they're like so overwhelming. And like, I don't really know like what to take action on. And I heard that feedback repeatedly. And so I realized that I got to shift and make an adjustment. And so I couldn't let it go So I stayed with the 1 hour video, but when I was done, I watched it and I made smaller chunks of that video. I did an intro to the video. I pulled out the mistakes and I made smaller chunks that people could tangibly consume and go through. And not only did it make it easier for me to understand what I was teaching, it also made it easier for them because they started getting results. They had something to come back and reference. No different than with our physical products companies, where we'll sell collagen, we'll sell supplements, we'll sell things, and we'll ask for feedback. And a lot of the big feedback that came shockingly with one of our supplements was, we just wish we had a way to like track our food and add this as a part of it. So all we did was made a nutrition tracker and we taught them how to track their food and log it with apps that already existed. But it led to increased retention and more sales because they were saying that if I had this and I used this, it would help me buy your product and use your product more. And it was this co-created relationship. And so with understanding that, I think it's important that we focus on having the right mindset when it comes to customers. Like our businesses, our visions, the success of them have two parties. Party number one is us, but party number two is our customers and potential customers, because they have to be consumers of our vision and they have to feel good in it and like they have a say and word in it. And when we fall in love with feedback and we create a process to ask, it builds loyalty, it builds trust, but it also gives you the fast track to make adjustments, to constantly iterate to get the results that we're going after for people. And so now I want to get into the how, because I want this to be tangible and tactical for you. And I want you to be able to take action on it today, right? And so when it comes down to gathering, and I'm going to say this word intentionally, high quality feedback, you have to start with a clear goal, because you can't get feedback for everything on once. And so what you want to ask yourself is, the easiest way to go into this is, think about anywhere in your business where there's a challenge right now in sales and marketing and delivery and customer journey. And if it's customer journey and all the rest of it, I'm here to help you. But think about where that challenge might be and start with a clear goal. Are you trying to refine a product? Are you trying to improve your marketing? Are you trying to identify new opportunities? Are you trying to simplify a process? And you want to start by defining a clear goal, because the feedback collection that you get, or the way in which you do it, has to have a specific business objective. There has to be a clear thing that you're trying to achieve. Just like at the end of our events, we ask people for testimonials, but also feedback. And we ask them like, what worked, what didn't work? Like, were the breaks good enough? Do you want more time? Should we teach things any differently? And the reason we're asking for that is we want to improve upon it at the next event, but we also want to communicate like, hey, we got your feedback. Thank you. Here's the adjustments that we're making. I appreciate you. And so you always want to start with a clear goal. And I would start with a clear goal before you even think about the methods for how to collect that feedback. You need the goal or the thing that you're trying to achieve, that you're trying to improve, that you're trying to change before you get into the method for collecting feedback. Now, we've all seen the methods for collecting feedback, right? We've seen surveys, we've seen direct conversations or DMs, we've seen social media listening, data-driven feedback, peer feedback, right? There's lots of options. I'm going to run through a few of them on the ones that we use and the ones that I see used the most effectively, so that you can choose a medium. So number one is we have surveys, right? And when you're doing surveys, the quality of the feedback that you get is based on the quality of the questions that you ask. And so we've seen all of these, right? Tangible ones that we've seen is like, what's one thing holding you back from achieving X, right? Your goal. Or, what's one way we can improve upon this to help you do this? I like to say, and I like to say this, if I'm asking questions that are making me uncomfortable, I'm asking the right questions. If I'm asking questions that I'm like, I already know the answer to, then I'm not getting the high quality feedback that we need or that I deserve. And there's a really good book by Ryan Levesque that's been around for a decade, I think at least, called Ask. But when you really think about the quality of feedback you're getting, it's dictated by the quality of questions that you ask, right? So surveys is one, but when using surveys, you want to ask questions, and you want to ask questions that sometimes are hard to face if you haven't shifted your mindset around feedback, right? You want to ask the questions that allow somebody to feel safe to be open and honest with you, so that you can get the feedback to be a better entrepreneur or have a better offer or deliver a better experience. The second one is direct conversations. And if I had to pin my hat in the most powerful, the most important, I was trying to think of another way to describe it. The most important way to get high quality feedback, it's direct conversations. And this can happen in a multitude of areas. It can happen in DMs. It can happen on Zoom calls. It can happen on phone calls, or even just casual interactions, right? I know when I go keynote, I stick around. So I'm keynoting again in May this year, and I had a conversation with the event organizers because I'm giving a keynote and then I'm giving 2 session talks. And I love it. But he's like, why do you want to stick around after the event the whole time? And I was like, because I want to ask questions of people. I want to see what landed. I want to see what confused them. I want to know if my delivery was good. Could I have been softer? Could I have taught it a different way? Could I have made a framework? Could I have made a model? And I ask as many questions as I can so I can adjust as quickly as possible to be able to create the ideal experience. But when it comes to direct conversations, you can have these anywhere. And the same thing applies. The quality of the questions that you ask will determine the quality of the feedback that you get. And so you can use DMs, you can use calls, you can use casual interactions, you can ask at the end of your coaching calls, you can connect with people, you can have an office hours in a community. And we've done this in our alliance where we were looking at the onboarding process that I was so proud of and put so much time in. And I asked everybody to come in as a focus group and said, hey, I want to create something new and I want to make this better. Can you give me feedback? And we had like 10 people jump on Zoom and I was like, give it to me, be raw, be real, be honest, as my friend Liz Benny would say. And they did. And it was so eye-opening for me. And I actually took most of that feedback and now I use it with my clients when I'm building their customer journeys because it was so spot on. And there were a couple of blind spots I didn't see. So direct conversations are another one. Social media listening. Social media listening. And earlier at the beginning of the show, I said, by seeing the things that they hear, but also hearing what they're not saying. And this comes through action, right? And this is really taking an objective view of the things that we're doing on social media. Are people commenting? Are they sharing? Are they asking questions? Are we asking for engagement and it's not coming in? And one of the things that I've always said is listen to what they're saying, but also watch what they're doing. And if you're consistently posting content and nobody's commenting on it, well, then you need some feedback to be able to make an adjustment. Or if you're consistently posting content and everybody's engaging and engaging and engaging and engaging, and then there's a spat where everybody stops engaging, it's time to take a step back and say, wait, what shifted? What changed? Did the market change? Did their needs change? Did I change? And being willing to look at it objectively to make adjustments. So social media listening is huge, but you can also take that lens and go into other buckets. You can look at competitors or friends of yours and see what content that they're posting is resonating. Or you can see the things that they're doing that are driving engagement. And I know for me personally, one of the things that a lot of my clients do really, really well is anonymous questions on Instagram. Well, when I tried the anonymous question box, it didn't work so well. We weren't getting any results whatsoever. And then when I went back to the native Instagram one, where I just said, DM me your questions, it worked way better. And so we looked at something, we tried it. I gave it a couple of weeks. It didn't work that well. And then we went back and that started working well again. And so social media listening is another one. And then of course, I'd say the most important one is data over drama, as Kate Perkovic would say, but data-driven feedback, right? So using the metrics in your business, like refund reasons, the drop-off points in a customer journey, reviews that people are leaving if you have a physical product, and even to the point of like social media listening, when I'm helping a physical products company scale, the first place I go is their reviews online. And then I go check all their competitors' reviews and I read those and I see the questions that people are asking that aren't being answered. I see the complaints they have about other products that aren't being addressed. And those are the pieces that we bring into our ecosystem in a customer journey and marketing and messaging to help people get their results. And so when you're thinking about how to start collecting high quality feedback, you start by setting a clear goal. Then you choose a method for collecting that feedback that matches you, that will give you the most bang for your buck. And here's the pro tip. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Overcomplicated processes overwhelm your audience and provide a lower response rate. Not many people want to take 15 minutes to fill out a survey. I'd rather you take those survey questions and break them up on Instagram in little chunks that people can say yes or no to. And so in collecting feedback, we also want to make it as easy as possible for somebody to give us feedback and then be able to collect it, accurately, and aggregate it together. Aggregate was the word I was looking for. Combine it all together. But if it's too complicated or if it's too overwhelming or they have to jump through all these hoops, then it's not really going to be effective. And so for me, the number one place that I ask for feedback is direct conversations. I'll go out on social, I'll get on my coaching calls, I'll be in our group and I'm like, hey, listen, the call's over, but I'm working on something. Would 5 of you be willing to jump on a call with me for half an hour so I can run this by you? I want you to be honest with me. And so we need to make it as simple as possible for the people giving us feedback so they feel safe to be honest, but also that it doesn't feel like work for them so that we can create that goal together or get that feedback together and make adjustments. And so then when it comes to collecting the feedback, the most important part is how to turn that feedback into immediate action. How do we turn that feedback into immediate action? And that really breaks down into 4 simple steps. Okay. So step number 1 is you want to identify patterns. Step number 2 is you want to prioritize the changes. Step number 3 is you want to, and most importantly, communicate back. This is huge from a customer journey perspective, but also realizing that businesses are two-way streets. And then number 4 is you want to iterate and test, right? So when we're thinking about identifying patterns, what you want to look for is recurring themes and customer feedback, right? So if multiple customers mention that they bought your product, but they're having trouble getting into your onboarding portal or it's confusing, it's a clear signal to simplify or change your customer journey. If you're running an event and everybody says the breaks aren't long enough and I feel distracted, it might be time to adjust your schedule to create break time. And so what you want to look for is you want to look for recurring themes, right? If there's a 1 out or 2 out that are not the popular opinion, you still want to filter through those and see if there's any truth to it. But what you want to look for is the recurring themes. So step number 1 is you aggregate and collect all that feedback, however you chose, a Google document, survey responses, a pen and paper in front of you, and you want to start looking for patterns. Once you find the patterns, you want to literally prioritize the changes. And so the next step would be to categorize the feedback. And the way to think about this is really in the lens of like quick fixes, right? Like Band-Aids are things that happen immediately. They're not that big. Midterm adjustments, like, okay, this might take a couple of weeks or a couple of days to a couple of weeks. And then long-term, which is like, oh, this is important. We need to keep this at the forefront of the business, but it's going to take us time to change this, right? So if you end up having to change the entire structure of a course because that feedback came in and it will be worth the business, that's not going to happen overnight. But if it's as simple as you get a ton of people who are like, God, that onboarding email didn't make any sense. Well, that's a half an hour to sit down, take that feedback and break it down and make it clearer and more tangible for them to digest to be able to take action on. And so you want to categorize the feedback into and pick a time zone for you, like in a day, in a week to a couple of weeks, or in months, so that you can focus on the changes that align with your business goals and have the highest impact. And for me, when we get feedback, the ones that hit that short bucket, those are the ones we take action on immediately because we can't lose the game. But when you look to that midterm or long term, what you're trying to figure out is which one's going to have the biggest impact, the objective or the goal that you set out. And then you prioritize based on that. The third step is communicating back. And so this is the most important part. Bring your audience along the journey with you. Bring your audience along the journey with you. So share with them how you're implementing the feedback with your audience, right? You can do this on social. You can do this on email. You can do this on your coaching calls. You can do this via DM. And most importantly, and I think the part that's missed is anybody who gives you feedback that you're communicating with, obviously if you're on a one-on-one call, you can acknowledge them and thank them. But anywhere where people are giving you feedback, customer journey them and love them and thank them because they're giving you a gift. And so make sure that you're communicating both ways. Don't just take all the feedback and then make changes because you lose the opportunity to take them on the journey with you. So we heard your concerns about X, and now we're changing it to be able to better serve you. It's going to look like A, B, and C. But when you do this, it builds trust, but it builds the most important part of a business scaling, which is a two-way relationship. It also positions you as like somebody who's approachable and responsive and customer focused, which is the most important thing to be able to build a sustainable scaling business. And so those are the 4 steps to be able to turn the feedback into action. Number 1 is identify the patterns. Okay. Number 2 is categorize that feedback in the lens of implementation and then prioritize it based on the goals that you're going after. Number 3 is communicate back, share them, take them on the journey with you, let them know what you're doing, let them know what updates you've made, let them know what adjustments you've made. And then number 4 is iterate and test. Iterate and test, because feedback is not a one and done process. It's an ongoing loop, just like the feedback loop. So you're going to have to fall in love with feedback, but also fall in love with iterations, because this allows you to experiment with new ideas and circle back for additional feedback. You might get feedback and you have an idea and you start testing it and sharing with people, and then it solved some of the challenges and then brought up some new ideas, and then you iterate and test and iterate and test. And so it's one of those things that like we have to be in love with, that like we're cooking a recipe and we have to constantly adjust it and make sure the oven's right and we have the right amount of salt and the right amount of sugar, and we're constantly tweaking it, being aware that the quality that we give it is going to dictate the quality of the results that we get. And so when it boils down to this, the most important thing now is like you're in one of 2 buckets. You're in bucket 1 of like, I've never asked for feedback because I'm scared or whatever other story there is, or I didn't think about it. Or you're in bucket, I do ask for feedback, but here's my invitation for anybody listening to this, myself included, is I want you to pick one method of gathering feedback and implement it this week. One method. If you're stuck, if you're confused, if you're even ruminating on an idea that you haven't found clarity with, ask your audience. Because if you don't know what's working, ask your audience. It's that simple. And this is a process that's a muscle, and the more you use it, the more you'll fall in love with it. And so I'm going to encourage you highly to take that action. And even if you do this often, look for a way to simplify it, or are we implementing the feedback, or can we do this a better way or a different way, so that you can constantly be in this process of iteration and falling in love with it. You start falling in love with feedback and falling in love with the iterations of these, the faster and faster you're going to hit your goals and be able to get there. Because this is not a one-way street. Your customers are not just buyers. They are co-creators in your vision. They're the consumers in your vision. They're occupying that vision. They're telling other people about it. And so listen to them, serve them, support them, be in relationship with them, have conversations with them. And that's how your business is going to thrive. And truthfully, through the most uncertain times, whether the online landscape changes or the state of the world changes, the success of your business comes down to the depth of relationship that you have with your customers and clients. And that comes down to you having a two-way relationship with them. And so this is a very, very important process. And so I would love to know, and I want you to share it. I want you to post it. But when you do, I want you to tag me or send it to me to DM. You can tag me in your story, or when you make these changes and you get that feedback and you start taking that action, you're sharing it with your audience and you're collecting more. I want to see it. I want to come celebrate you. I'll give you feedback. I'll support you any way that I can. But I would love to know how you're implementing this in your business. And if you have any questions about it, just shoot me a DM on Instagram. We can set up a 15-minute coffee call. I can throw creative ideas out. I can give you feedback. I can help you apply it to your customer journey, whatever that case is. But I want you to fall in love with the process. I want you to fall in love with the feedback and take it as a gift. And I want you to fall in love with the iterations and take it as you have an entire army of people that are paying attention to you, whether they're in your marketing, whether they're in your community, whether they've only ever given you their email, or they're clients of yours that are basically saying, hey, if you walk in this direction, we're going to keep supporting you and we're going to bring other people along this journey with us. And so make your business customer focused, make it a two-way street, and co-create your vision with your customers. And so that's what I got for you today. I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions, and even more importantly, if you have any feedback for me on how I can do this better, or any topics you want me to discuss or things that you want me to teach on the show, just shoot them my way. I selfishly love them all, and I will get to work on outlining an episode and sharing it with you. So you have my permission to slide into my DMs on Instagram. It's at It's George Bryant, and give me all the feedback you want so that I can keep improving, I can keep growing. And so I love you to pieces. Have the most beautiful day. Remember that relationships will always beat algorithms. I'll either see you in the next episode or you'll hear me in your earballs. But either way, we're out. And may God bless you and have the most beautiful, beautiful day of your life.